Hi guys and welcome to the video. In this video we are going to explore some techniques to improve the React performance. Basically this video is going to be divided to two parts. The first part I'm going to talk about lazy loading and suspense, and we're going to use this example that you see on the page, and the second part is going to be about some React hooks that can improve the app performance. So let's go to the code and I will show you the first example. So first of all, as you can see, I have this router that I'm importing from the lazy loading folder. And basically inside this folder we have the router. And as you can see, for now, I'm having regular imports, just like you would import pages to the router. We have this navigation that is just a navbar. So you can see this navbar over here is the navigation. And we have some pages that I created. So we have some React functional components just for the demonstration. So as you can see, now I have this main router. Lazy loading usually will go with the main router just to decrease the bundle size of the first load of the app. So you can think about it like this. Let's say that I have a very big application with more than 100 pages and components. What I mean is for example, the home page importing a lot of components, the about page is importing components and so on, and we have a huge amount of JavaScript. So on the first load of the page, we actually, when we open the app, we're going to load all this JavaScript, and it can take some time. So basically what lazy loading does is when you use lazy loading, it will import the pages only when we need them. So basically only when I click on the page, when I go to the page, then I will load the page and load the JavaScript. So first of all, let me show you the regular example. And if I inspect here the network, let me actually refresh. You can see that I'm getting this all the bundle size here. And if I go to home page, about page, contact, it doesn't matter what page I go, nothing actually happens in the network. But when you will see when I have this lazy loading implemented, when I go to a page that I didn't load yet, you will see a network request that requesting the bundle size of this page. So let me refresh again. Let's actually go to the router and let's comment the regular imports and uncomment these lazy imports. The only difference, as you can see, is we just specify react.lazy and we take a callback function and import the file that we want, and we specify it just as a constant, and then we provide it to the router. Another thing that I have to uncomment is this suspense, and basically what it does, you can see it's very clear. So we have a fallback, and I just specify here a div with loading, and basically when we go to different pages, we have a time until the page will be loaded. So I just display this loading when the page is not ready yet. So let's go back to the browser. Now let's refresh. Okay, so first of all, I'm on my home page. And as I go to a different page that I didn't load yet, so let's go to the about. You can see that I have a new network request, and I'm getting the JavaScript bundle for the about page. Now, what is interesting about this is I already loaded the homepage JavaScript. So if I go back to the homepage, you will not see any additional request because it already loaded. If I go to home about, nothing actually happens. But if I go to a page that I didn't load yet, for example, contact, you can see that I'm having a new network request. And now also the contact is already loaded. And if I switch between the three of them, nothing will happen. And of course, the only page left is not existing page. I just created a 404 page, and we're getting this network request one more time. And basically, I've loaded all the pages. Now, you didn't see the loading state because the components are very small. So let me actually try to decrease my network speed, and let's try to see this loading state. So you already could see the loading state before the home page, but let's try to go to another page and pay attention to this string. So if I go to about page, you could see that I was in the loading state, and then I got the about page. So basically this is the lazy loading, and usually it is used on the main router to decrease the bundle size. So this was the first thing. Now let's go to the hooks section. Alright, so I don't need this anymore, so we can go to the app and comment this router because we don't need it, and uncomment the hooks. So let's go through the hooks, and let me show you what is going on there. So we have the parent. This is the file that we're actually loading. And in the parent, what I have here is wait, I have some error here. Oh, so I need to actually import the file, so my mistake. If I go to parent, what we have here, I created the state to be able to change the state every time I want. So just a counter that I can increase it. And we have data, array of data. Basically, it will be list items. And we have here a number of 2 billion. I'm going to need this number, sorry, not 2 billion, 1 billion. I'm going to need this number to actually create a heavy function. So I'm using this number to, you can see here this heavy function. It's getting the number, and basically what it does is it's doing a for loop 1 billion times and getting the sum of each loop starting from 0, 1, 2, and it goes until 1 billion. So I'm just pretending to have a heavy function here, and we have here a on click to increment the state of the counter. We have not yet memoized result of the function, and basically what we return is the button, not yet memoized button, the counter state, the sum result of the heavy function, and we have here a map with the list items. So basically, let me just show you on the screen what it looks like. So we have the button, we have the counter state, we have the sum result with the heavy function, and we have the list items. You can see in the console that I have console log for each render of each thing on the screen. So I have render of heavy function, I have render of the button, and I have render of the list item. Basically because we have 4 list items, it happens 4 times. So let's refresh, and you can see that it took some time to actually render the heavy function. So the goal of this is to actually get rid of all these renders when I click on me. You can see that when I click on this button, again I have a render of the heavy function, render of the button, render of the list item. So basically every time I change the state, and you can see this function is working very slow, so every time I change the state, I'm having a re-render of all these items. So let's start working and fixing all the renders for this page. So first of all, I want to actually get rid of this heavy function because it actually very slowing my process. So what we have in React is something that is called useMemo. So let me uncomment already the memoized function, and you can see here the memoized result is this one. Now let me comment the regular function. So basically what useMemo does is you can see that we have this callback, and I'm putting the heavy function inside useMemo, and still I have the number that I'm passing, and here in the dependency I have this number again, and basically only if this dependency is going to change, this heavy function is going to run again. So because we have this number, and this number is going to be all the time this 1 billion, the heavy function will run only one time to calculate the result, and then it will cache the result, and we're going to get the result from the useMemo. Every time I change the state, this function is not going to run. So the idea here is not to see this console log every time I change the state, only on the first render. So if I save this file, let's see what we got. If I go back, let me refresh the page. Okay, so you can see that I have this render of heavy function and render of the button and render of the list items. Basically now when I click, you can see that it happens instantaneously, and I don't have the render of the heavy function. If I click a lot of times, you can see that it happens right away. So I'm not doing the calculation of the heavy function again, because I'm getting it from the useMemo hook. So basically this is it. We can delete all of this because we finished with dealing with the heavy function. Now the next thing I want to talk about is how to memorize these list items. So you can see that I'm having a map here of every item, basically it's these items, and I'm rendering a memorized list item with key and text as props. If I go to the list item, you can see that I have a functional component with a prop of text, and of course I'm having this console log to see the item when it's rendered again. And inside the return, I'm having a div with the text prop. So there is something in React that is called react.memo. So if I wrap this memoized list item, what it's going to do is going to check the prop, and only if this text prop is going to change, it will render this component. So let's check it. If I go to the browser and refresh, and now when I change the state, look at this. I don't have a render of the heavy function, and I don't have a render of the list items. So basically now when I click, I have only render of the button. Now the only thing left is the render of the button. So basically what you can think from the previous lesson that I told you, that if we wrap this button with react.memo, because the on-click is not going to change, and this is my only prop, so the button is not going to render every time. So let's actually try to do it with react.memo, and we're going to put the button inside here. And you can see that this is actually the same that we did in the list item. So the prop of on click is not going to change, and we're not going to render the button. But there is a problem. So let me show you that actually this doesn't work. So if I refresh and I click on the button is still going to render every time that the state is changing. And this is why it happens. If we go to the parent, you can see that I'm having the on-click function that is setting the state to counter +1. And basically every time that I change the state, this function on-click is going to be different, because this function is going to render every time the state is changing. And what we can do to fix this is to use a hook that is called useCallback. So if I delete this and let's uncomment this function, so this is now a memoized function. What I mean by this, the onClick is going to be a useCallback, and we have the set counter inside the useCallback. And now, because of this useCallback, this function is not going to render every time the state is changing. So basically we get two benefits from here. We are not rendering the function every time that the state is changing. So we have this benefit of not rendering the function on each state change, and we're going to have a benefit of the button, because now this onClick is going to be every time the same function. So basically we will not render this component every time that I click on the button. And let's go back to the browser for the last time and refresh. Now you can see all the three renders, and when I click on the button you see the state is changing, but I'm not rendering any of the components. I'm not doing the heavy function, not rendering the list, and I'm not rendering the button. Alright guys, so this is it for this video. So we talked about lazy loading and suspense, we talked about some hooks that can improve performance. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do it. And of course, like the video if you liked it. And I will see you on the next one. Bye and thank you all.